Every autumn, my Instagram feed gets filled with pumpkin spice and baked goods and scarves and trending audio from, you know, Practical Magic or the Gilmore Girls, and it's lovely. But this past year, I noticed a real difference in what I was seeing, because people weren't just dusting off their favourite 90s comfort show, they were dusting off the 90s itself. Analogue living. Big old trend at the moment. One can't move for articles and TikToks and videos, all espousing the benefits of, I'm just gonna go analog for a little bit. And I'm all for a lot of the ideas of it, but like with all trends, I think we're about to turn the corner into something for big business to take advantage of. And we're teetering on the edge of falling for it. I think the words analog living are describing something that has been in many guises over the past years. Slow living was one of them. Something that I've been absolutely taking part of and leaning into for the past couple of years. Here's one example. I used to have a massive DVD collection, right? And when you find yourself moving house twice in the space of 3 months, and you're surrounded by cardboard, like you're drowning in packing material, you start getting a bit ruthless with what you're going to bring with you. And in one of my more frazzled moments, I made the decision to have a massive DVD cull. Well, I guess they're on streaming now, except they aren't, are they? Because since there are roughly 12 new streaming platforms a day, the stuff that is available on those streaming platforms gets moved about. And unless you're paying for all of the streaming platforms, you don't always have access to the thing that you want. Also, sometimes they just get rid of shows entirely. And if you no longer have your DVD, you don't have access to that thing. You find yourself getting rid of half your wrestling DVDs, and then the network that holds the entire wrestling library history disappears from the internet, and suddenly you're like, oh, but I was in the middle of that. And you start being like, oh, I just wish I'd kept my DVDs, because then at least they're mine. And what if the internet goes down? So lately, I've been slowly rebuilding that. And I mentioned the other week that I moved the living room around. When I did that, I shifted my DVD shelf over into the corner, and I haven't had time to organise it. So I thought, while we go and organise those DVDs, we could take a little bit of time to talk about the idea of analog living, and why I think, here's the engagement bait part of the video, people are talking about it all wrong. But before we do that, let's take a little second to say thank you to this video's sponsor, Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN, a virtual private network, that lets you control how you use the internet and, more importantly, how the internet uses you. I've had Surfshark for a while now, and let me tell you, with the way the tech industry is going, I am very happy about it. So one of the things that started getting me real cross about the streaming situation was the way shows would come and go with reckless abandon. You find yourself getting really into something, and then before you know it, there's a little note on the holding screen that says, this show is going to disappear within 3 days, and that's not enough time to finish, Brenda! You can use Surfshark to change your virtual location so you can browse that streaming platform in question and get access to the library that's available in that location and finish your show in peace. If you're in America and you regret, like me, giving away all your wrestling DVDs, well, if you hop over from America virtually to the UK, we've got them all on Netflix, lads. And you can also use Surfshark to protect yourself while you're browsing. Stop unwanted spam emails, encrypt your data to keep it safe from prying eyes when you're using public Wi-Fi, and generally put that little bit more power back in your hands. If you want to give Surfshark a try, you can use the code DanielJ or visit surfshark.com/DanielJ, and you'll get 4 extra months, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can give it a go risk-free. Even worse than the cull, and this is a decision that still haunts me, I thought, well, I can keep the DVDs, but I don't need to keep the cases. I'll just store them in a more economic, space-saving disc wallet. I have every WrestleMania, sorry to the non-wrestling fans, every WrestleMania through, I think, 27, collected from getting the first one over the course of nearly 2 decades. So I kept the DVDs, but I put the cases in the recycling. I'll give you a moment to sit there in stunned silence. Yes, I seriously regret getting rid of those, because I like the cases very much. There's nothing like sitting there and holding a disc and thinking about. It's that intentionality. The process of, like, selecting a DVD and then, oh, here we go, and taking this one, and I'll open it and consider that I'm going to watch this. It feels very grounding in a way. It makes it feel like an event, far more than, like, lying on my side endlessly scrolling through thumbnails that tell me nothing about the film. And, like, sometimes I quite like that. Sometimes I like to dip in and out of YouTube videos. I like to, like, watch a little bit of it and then leave and figure out what I'm in the vibe for. It's like having tapas, right? But you don't always want to eat tapas. Sometimes you just want a full plate. Do you know what I mean? I have started to try and rebuild the collection, so every now and again I'll walk past a charity shop or a CEX, and, like, I did it in Watford the other day. I needed a day out. I went to Watford. Don't ask any questions. When I went there, I got the Lake House, Under the Tuscan Sun, JFK, The Intern, and movie called Dinner with Friends. Like, they're there now. Down here, I'm building a collection of Best Picture winners. So, like, I've got Chicago on Blu-ray, of course, because I like films. We've got Chicago, the Best Picture of all time, no takebacks, King's Speech, Argo, The Artist, loads of them. The Departed. I think the reason that this analog thing is so connected to like my generation, and I'll stretch it out wider to some of Gen X and Gen Z as well. We've experienced such a lightning shift in tech. We remember the time before and the time now, and it's a yearning, isn't it? I saw a reel last night where the creator spotted that the calendar of 2026 is the same as the calendar of 1998, and she gets out her old Spice Girls calendar and puts it on the wall. And then it's quite nice, this reel, it like transports her back and her room starts morphing back into a 1998 room. And I think the nostalgic craving that's driving people towards this idea of analog living is built around yearning for a simpler time, a freer time that is obviously warped because we were kids then, so we didn't have any like adult responsibility. But she ends it with taking a phone call where she's like, yeah, I can come out to play, which speaks to, I think, something that's at the root of all of this, which is a craving and a need for communication. Issues of connection that we have. And the internet has opened so many doors for connection. I have a load of friends who live across the world that I have built those friendships with through the connection that the internet has brought me. And at the same time, there is a sense of connection lost, like real world connection lost. But while it's true that our generations have that experience of going from non-internet life to a position where unbelievable computing power is available to us in our pockets at all times, that loss of connection, or that feeling of a lost connection, is not exclusive to us. And older tech execs seem not to be completely aware of what younger audiences want, because I listen to a podcast called The Town, which is a really interesting podcast about the entertainment industry, but it comes at it from a business perspective. And they were doing an episode about how do you coax a younger audience in to see a film at the cinema. And the execs are talking about things like phone-friendly screenings, right? We've all had that horrible experience where you're sat in a movie and someone down there has like opened their phone and the light is illuminating their face and it's interrupting your immersion into the film, and then maybe they're scrolling and they're doing it for ages and not really paying attention. Sometimes people take a phone call. Like, if you're that person, come on. And in response, these like execs and things like that are like, well, why don't we make screenings where people can do that? Because clearly there's an attention deficit problem. Hey, the kids love being on their devices all the time, so let's bring the devices into the cinema rather than them feeling like that's not a place for them. However, it turns out that's not what the kids want, because there have been so many really interesting reports that suggest that Gen Alpha are really craving experiences where they can leave their devices at the door. They go to the movies, they can get away from their phone and have a shared experience with their friends. And now often the key example of this that people like to draw from is the Minecraft movie. So let's follow that example through. I'll admit, I didn't see the Minecraft movie. I did read a lot about it, and I'm completely baffled by whatever this whole chicken jockey thing is, right? But from what I understand, the chicken jockey would appear on screen and then the kids would all shout chicken jockey, and that's a sentence that's added at least 3 new wrinkles to my face. And there's a world where that's all well and good because that's quite movie specific. It did go a bit mental though, because there obviously were reports of people throwing popcorn and drinks into the air and going, like, having a bit of a riot, which, aside from thinking of the poor cinema workers who have to clean that stuff up. By the way, here's a PSA, here's a call to action for everybody. Take your rubbish with you when you leave. Go on. You don't love to see that level of mess. But if I may, I don't think that true cineasts are having their film-going pilgrimage ruined, because they're probably not going to be at a weekend screening of Minecraft the movie, are they? Like, they might, but if you choose to go to that kind of screening, you might be opening yourself up to taking part in that collective experience. But actually, since I'm going down the sort of like cineast film connection route, do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of screenings of The Room, which is a cult classic, sort of famously terrible movie, during which, in the background, there is a framed picture of a spoon. It's just a stock picture of a spoon. And when you go to screenings of The Room, often you will see the picture of that spoon, you will yell the word spoon, and then throw plastic spoons at the screen. Tell me that's not the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that every movie from now on has to factor in audience participation. I think that would be foolish. But you know what? Neither are the kids, because there's an interview on BBC News where the kids coming out of the Minecraft movie.
I personally believe that you should be able to get involved, but not go, like, too far, like throwing popcorn and drinks and stuff.
I mean, personally, I prefer a quiet cinema, but I understand if it's a thing that people do during a certain moment in the film, then it's all right. But I think if you're going to go as far as throwing popcorn or something, then maybe don't, because it means that the cleaners will have to clean up after you.
I think you should stay quiet in the movie so you don't disturb anyone.
Do you know what? The kids are all right. It turns out the iPad generation quite likes the opportunity to put them down now and again, possibly because it's so ingratiated into all aspects of their life, work, home, parents giving them to play games to keep them quiet for a bit. Opportunities to step away from technology are really appealing. And it's the older folks that run the big businesses in the suits that are trying to force them into our hands all the time. I think I find it a bit funny when I see people bragging about how offline they are, living this analog life with no internet on social media. Like, they've come online just to tell me how much they enjoy being offline, except they're not offline because they're online. Do you know what I mean? And I think at the moment, some people, or maybe it's fairer to say some businesses, some hustlers, are a bit more focused on the aesthetic performance of analog. And while I think most people are doing it for a sense of peace and quiet in their life, I think the more it becomes a thing, the less effective it is. Here's an example. And I'm going to reference Lena Norms, who made a fantastic video about the whole analog experience. She makes fantastic videos all the time. You should go and watch her channel. In it, she showcased that she had a new digital camera, and I've seen a lot of these out and about. But what they are is a device that looks like, in form, an old analog camera, but takes photos digitally. And the gimmick is that it doesn't have a screen, so you just, look through the little viewfinder, you take the photo, and you can't see the photo until such time as you filled up the camera and you transport it to your laptop or whatever. Idea being that it stops you from overthinking and looking for the perfect photo and just lets you live in the moment. So far, so woo-woo, right up my street. But the photos that they're taking are digital files, and they're not that much different from the photos you'd get if you just used your phone. Now, I get it. I see what we're going for. I do find the things phones do with photos now more than a little dystopian. It's one thing to do a live photo where it captures a full second and you can scroll to the frame in that second where you haven't got your eyes closed in a group picture. It's a whole other thing to be able to change your child's face from maybe looking a bit blank to smiling broadly. Starts to feel like you're changing memories, and I don't like that. So it's a nice idea in response to this whole camera without a screen thing. But here's the thing. The first digital cameras that we had, they had screens. The USP of moving from a traditional film camera to a digital camera was not that it was going to make your photos infinitely better, although there was, I suppose, an increase in quality on certain cameras. It was more to do with the amount of storage, from what I can remember. So rather than taking a camera on holiday and being limited to the amount of rolls of film you could bring with you, or a disposable camera and being limited to the number of photos that were in that disposable camera, now you could take as many as you wanted, and it didn't matter if you blinked in one of the group shots, because you could probably take 2 or 3. So if these new, digital cameras with no screens to keep you in the moment aren't taking photos that are better than a disposable camera that you could pick up at a shop now, or better than your phone, if you're not someone who's inclined to go in and do all of the AI retouching and stuff, I sort of fail to see the point of them beyond a bit of a cash grab. Anyway, I have a lot of feelings about real photos and photo albums and tangible photos that you can hold in your hand and look at your memories and cry about. So maybe this is a whole other topic that we can stretch out into a video of its own. Goodness me, look how prolific we're being in 2026. Shall I get to my point? I don't think it's possible to go completely offline. I don't think it's smart to go completely offline. In the world we live in, access to information and communication and togetherness online is really important. So I think we should recognize what people are actually talking about when we're looking at this analog thing is we're just looking for a slower way of living, right? Everything at the moment is hustle culture. It's all about what's your side hustle? How can you monetize that experience? Hey, you know that hobby you've got? Can you make it an Etsy store? Even our downtime, or the moments where we're trying to switch off our brain a little bit, is taken advantage of and turned into opportunities for tech companies to reach out of our devices and get their claws into us. Netflix literally says that one of their biggest competitions is sleep. And as someone who thoroughly enjoys a lot of Netflix's output, that sentiment can get absolutely fucked. DVDs or CDs or vinyls or any kind of physical media really are great examples of what slow living looks like in a practical way. Going to your shelf, getting the DVD, opening the case, taking out the disc, putting it in a machine, closing the machine, flicking through the menu, and then pressing play. That's a whole lot of steps that you wouldn't have to do if you're just on a streaming platform. but it does make watching that movie feel like more of an event, doesn't it? It does feel like something more conscious that you're doing for yourself. And if you take that out wider and remember what it used to be like to go to a video store, like getting in the car or getting on the bus, going into town, being at the video store, looking at the shelves, trying to decide what you want to watch, adding those steps to the mix as well, and making sure you do watch it that night because you don't want to risk giving it back and getting late fees, the whole thing becomes an activity in consciously doing something with intent rather than passively doing something to quiet the noise from being pulled in a million directions. I think the analog thing is really just people looking for ways to calm down a bit. And that can only be a good thing. But the deep irony is that when you see it become a trend, when you see reels or half-hour vlogs with tips about how to live your best analog life, or you see TikTok Shop filling itself up with modern-day facsimile reproductions made on the cheap of like fake CD players or whatever, to jump on that rising popularity of people wanting to live an analog lifestyle, it's becoming a hustle. And that rather defeats the point, doesn't it?